Hi readers, welcome back to my channel. Lee here with some overhead lighting, which is not really the best lighting I could have, but it is a dark, cold, gloomy day, and I need to be able to see what I'm doing. So, I've been struggling this year. I feel like I just maybe haven't made the right book choices, or maybe it's me. I don't know. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off with a little reading recap and let you know where I am and how I've been struggling. And then I'm going to end with my favorite thing. You'll see. So I started the year with One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, and I really enjoyed this. This is a YA, I guess, romantasy, and I think I enjoyed it more than Iron Flame. Is it Iron Flame? Whatever. Anyway, because this is more about the fantasy and less about the romantasy, and there's a dark character in here who I really love. Next up, I took a break between that first book and its sequel, and I read a book called Forgetting. This was fascinating. I did a review on here earlier. It was difficult to read, but she kept pulling me back in. Then I finished another great book, which was the sequel to One Dark Window, and that is Two Twisted Crowns. This finalized the series. It took us to a place I kind of thought it would go. I'm not sure what my cat's doing. Trying to catch a bird, I think. And I really enjoyed it. If you like YA fantasy, highly recommend this book. Then, I'm trying to incorporate more classics and literary fiction, which is why I read Forgetting. So then I tried Sinclair Lewis' It Can't Happen Here, which I stumbled across in the used bookstore. And it finally got, I didn't even get to the halfway mark, it finally got just painful to read. And it's his writing style, I know, which makes me wonder, do I even want to try to read Babbitt, which I have upstairs? When it started, the fascist, gave his 14 points or whatever. It was interesting, but then he kept losing me, and unlike Forgetting, he could not pull me back in. So I put this one aside because I may come back to it later, but I had to take a break and read something different. Next up, I read Like a Love Story by Abdi Nazamian. I did love Abdi's other book that I have over here. The other one that I've read. He's got several books. I loved Only This Beautiful Moment. I just liked Like a Love Story. And I think the reason that I felt that way is it read very young. They're both involved teenagers, both books involve teenagers, but this just read a lot younger, and there was a surprise part at the end. It was my favorite part of the book, but overall, just an okay read. Let me talk to you about the other disappointment, Women in Intelligence, which I had very high hopes for. But from the beginning, it felt really choppy, like stories were cut off. And fair, you know? A lot of stuff about women in World War I or in World War II. I didn't even get to World War II. I got barely to the 40s and I had to stop. Just because it felt so choppy. And I thought, well, maybe there's not enough declassified out there. Maybe these women didn't talk much about their stories, so maybe there's not much out there. So I pushed along until the sentence that made me tap out. She's talking about Joan Osborne, who have not looked up at all. But Joan makes a visit somewhere, and the author writes, "The purpose of this visit is not known. It might have been for intelligence, although Osborne could have been a paying guest." So what's the point then? Why even mention this trip if you don't know for sure that it was for intelligence work? That was it. When I read that sentence, I tapped out. I am big on primary sources and facts and not summarizing. And so I will use this for reference, but I'm not going to finish. Oops. Might knock some books down. I'm not going to finish that. Currently, I am reading, and I should finish this up tonight, The Magic of Lemon Drop Pie by Rachel Linden. Sorry, got my Rachels mixed up. I am enjoying this book, but it, again, somehow it feels a little bit like a chore. But again, I think that's just me. It's great. It's gloomy. Those are usually the best days to read. But I'm not loving it the way I loved One Dark Window or Two Twisted Crowns. So now, I think it's time for a book haul. And yes, I did. I went to the dentist on Friday, and I hate going to the dentist. I've had bad experiences at dentists in the past, so it's always like very stressful for me, even if it's just a cleaning. So afterward, I had to go to the bookstore to relieve some stress. And I came home with Poor Dear by Claire Oshetsky. This is, again, literary fiction. Margaret Murphy is a weaver of fantastic tales, growing up in a world where the truth is too much for one little girl to endure. Her first memory is of the day her friend Agnes died. No one blames Margaret, not in so many words. Her mother insists to everyone who will listen that her daughter even never left the house that day, etc., etc. Enter Poor Dear, a strange and formidable creature who winds her way uninvited into Margaret's made-up tales. Poor Dear will not rest until Margaret faces the truth about her past and atones for her role in Agnes's death. So, Margaret, I don't believe this is a spoiler because I think it's like on the first page. Margaret is responsible for her friend's death and she's in denial. So this looks like kind of a combination between literary fiction and horror. Speaking of horror, next up is O Caledonia, which I feel like I've seen, but I've never read anything by her. This is a darkly humorous modern classic about a doomed adolescent girl. The opening scene, they find the body of 16-year-old Janet in her Highlands home. No shortage of suspects of murder and of the unlovely and unloved Janet. But this is not a whodunit, but an account of our ill-fated young heroine's life, from birth to early death, about sibling bonds and betrayals, isolation and loneliness, the miseries of adolescence, and the saving grace of books. Gothic fiction here. I look forward to reading that someday. On YouTube, I follow a guy named Greg, and his channel is called Supposedly Fun, and he is one of the few people I follow frequently or watch his videos frequently because he and I seem to have more similar tastes. So I usually do look to him for recommendations. He also does Pulitzer Prize reading. I'm getting there, not quite there yet. Anywho, he recommended this book. He and his husband love it. It is Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. I do not know how to pronounce that. I've hesitated on this book because it's a romance between an adolescent boy and a summer guest at his parents' cliffside mansion, and it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable about maybe that adolescent is too young. However, again, Greg and his husband highly recommend this. They love this book, so I'm going to give it a shot. Next, this one I hope is much better than the last nonfiction book I got. At any rate, it will definitely be a reference. It is Forgotten Warriors, The Long History of Women in Combat. So, I stumbled over this at the Barnes & Noble. I can't believe I had not found it yet because I've been there many times lately. But I really look forward to that. Also on the nonfiction side, I got The Holocaust, an unfinished history. And the premise of this is a history that re-examines the brutal reality of the Holocaust and reinterprets events as a living trauma from which modern society has not yet recovered. This is written by Dan Stone, a historian from London, and I really look forward to watching that. Reading that, folks. Sorry. I got to thinking about, I'm going to be signing up for a new World War II class. This one is on the air war in Europe, so I'm looking forward to that. This probably won't have anything to do with that class, but it's still all part of my studies. On the YA front, fiction, but also about World War II, codename Verity. A British spy plane crashes in Nazi-occupied France. Its pilot and passenger are best friends, but just one of the girls has a chance at survival. Arrested by the Gestapo, Verity is given a choice: reveal her mission or face a grisly execution. They'll get the truth out of her, only it won't be what they expect. I look forward to reading that. That will go on the read soon pile. So this is the one book I went into Barnes & Noble for that day. I should have known I would not only come out with one. And that is Sugar Baby by Celine St. Clair. This is a new release. It is about a girl who gets mixed up with she's poor. She gets mixed up with a rich girl and gets involved in the sugar baby lifestyle. And they call it a compelling journey of self-discovery that offers sharp commentary on race, beauty, and class. So, this seems modern, interesting, and can't wait to read it. Next up is The Wren by Anne Enright, a more literary fiction. I've never read any Anne Enright. This is set in Ireland. It is the story of Nell McDara, who never knew her grandfather, the celebrated poet, but his love poems seem to speak directly to her. Nell's mother knows the magic of her daddo's poetry too well. I'm not sure where to go. So anyway, Nell's mother's husband leaves her and the kids. I'm not really sure what it is about. Is it about Nell or is it about her mother? I guess I'll find out. Anywho, it was 50% off too. Finally, from this Barnes & Noble haul, I bought this book, Damn the Valley. It's a kind of response to another book called Bravo Company, I believe. This is Damn the Valley, 1st Platoon Bravo Company, 2nd of the 508th Parachute Infantry Regiment, 82nd Airborne in the Arghandab River Valley, Afghanistan. This is by William Yeski. It is his story. He wrote it again as a response to another book on Bravo Company. I don't expect this to be literary fiction. It's written by a former soldier. But I want to hear his story. It's important to me to read the stories, even though they are painful, that come out of Afghanistan. But from one war to another, the next three are not part of my Barnes & Noble book haul. These are some pre-orders that I've done, or an order. I have been waiting and waiting to get this book, and I kept saying, no, I've got too many books. But I finally bit the bullet and ordered Stalingrad by Antony Beevor, because Stalingrad and the inability of the Germans to take it really had an impact in World War II and in the course of the war. So this is going to go up there in the read, hopefully this year. Now to yet another war. I pre-ordered this because it is a tale about sisters. It is American Girls, one woman's journey into the Islamic State and her sister's fight to bring her home by Jessica Roy. I think that pretty much says it all. But anywho, This is kind of modern and has to do with things that are happening now. So that's definitely going up into the read this year pile. Finally, been on the fence about this, but then one of my favorite reviewers, Sadie Hartman, aka Mother Horror, did a book response on her Patreon this week, and I ordered it yesterday and it arrived today. That is This Wretched Valley by Jenny Kiefer. This is pub day for that, the day I'm recording this. Mother Horror says that the characters are unlikable. You already kind of know how it ends, so you're kind of mostly reading about what unfolds and how it happens. So, this trip is going to be Dylan's big break. Her geologist friend Clay has discovered an untouched cliff face in the Kentucky wilderness, and she's going to be the first person to climb it. Together with Clay, his research assistant Sylvia, and Dylan's boyfriend Luke, Dylan is going to document her achievement on Instagram and finally cement her place as the next rising star in rock climbing. 7 months later, 3 bodies are discovered in the trees just off the highway. All are in various states of decay. One, a stark white skeleton. The second, emptied of its organs. And the third, a mutilated corpse with the tongue, eyes, ears, and fingers removed. But Dylan is still missing, and no trace of her, dead or alive, has been discovered. Were the climbers murdered? Did they succumb to cannibalism? Or are their impossible bodies the work of an even more sinister force? This dread-inducing debut builds to a blood-curdling climax and will leave you shocked by the final twist. I hope it does. I hope it does. This is going to be my next read after I finish Lemon Drop, and I hope it is good. I hope that I hate the main characters. I hope that it does build to a blood-curdling climax. I don't believe it will scare me. I'd be way happy if it does. It's been decades since a book scared me. Anywho, I do have another book coming in, I think on Thursday. I'm recording this on a Tuesday, and so I won't do a book haul for that. It's about Nazi-occupied France, and one of my friends on Goodreads is reading it, and so naturally, I had to buy it. So, that's my book haul. That's where I am in my reading. I am on book number 6. I realized that 1, 2, 3, 4, I only showed you 5 books. I did read one on Kindle, and that is going to be my feature on the Women in War series that I will have out by the end of the month, inshallah. That's it for me. Are you having any struggles or successes in your reading year so far? I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Happy reading!